Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Raise Capital Legally podcast and YouTube channel, where we talk about topics of interest to real estate syndicators and fund managers with an opportunity for, ooh, what happened to my page here? Sorry, it went all crazy. With an opportunity for live Q&A. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. My whole page just like disappeared here.
Take care of it. With the opportunity for a live Q&A at the end of the call. This is Krisha Young. She is our business development director and also our client success coach. She has a uncanny ability to help people through mindset issues, which is a big issue for people who are raising capital. And so I just want to make sure that you know she's a resource that's available to you. I am attorney Kim Lisa Taylor. Before we get started, please note that audio and video from this event will be posted on our podcast platform, YouTube channel, website, and social media, and will be made available to the public. You can ask questions at the end of the broadcast by raising your hand or typing it in the Q&A. We are recording live. If you are watching this later on YouTube, please subscribe. We would love for you to continue to get great content from us. Excuse me. The information discussed during this event is of a general educational nature and should not be construed as legal advice. We brought on an expert, Peter Neill, who's been working in the single family space for a while. He uses his fund to buy single family and duplexes in Baltimore, typically buys severely distressed properties. And, some of them are Section 8 subsidized. I guess some are probably not. And anyway, we, want to explore his expertise in this area and how it can be great, especially if you want to invest close to home, right? If you want to invest, it's okay to buy a 100-unit apartment complex, but if you're in you want to invest locally, places that you can drive to, that, if you had to, you'd put a coat of paint on it yourself, you'd fix a door, then how to use this as part of your toolbox. So, our single family homes and duplexes, the overlooked gems of real estate investing. We're going to let Peter tell us, and he's going to share the secrets of profiting from these smaller properties that many investors ignore. So whether you're a new investor or seasoned pro, this episode will offer actionable insights and expert advice on how to turn modest investments into significant returns. Peter, welcome. Welcome to Raise Capital Legally podcast.
Kim, Krisha, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Sure.
Thank you for being here. Yeah. Thank you, Kim, for taking over there for me. That was great teamwork.
Very good.
No worries. Okay, so how'd you get started in this business? What did you do?
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate, very lucky. I think success in any business probably involves a certain amount of luck. And I grew up, my dad was a property manager, facility manager for CBRE, and a couple different firms, throughout my childhood. And so I would grow up driving around to all different stuff. He managed single family portfolios. He did a lot of commercial, a lot of retail, industrial, office, that kind of thing. But it was all on the management side. So growing up, if it was bad weather, storms, things like that, I'd hear him in the other room up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, talking to people and getting people where they need to be. So I didn't think real estate was really for me. I thought, I don't know if I want to do that, So I went to Temple University and majored in media business and entrepreneurship. And I worked a lot in television and radio and thought I was going to do that. And fate brought me to a marketing and sales position with a company called PPR. And it was advertised as a real estate investment company. At that time, they were doing a lot of distressed mortgage investing, which is a form of real estate investing. It's debt investing, but it's backed by real estate. And I worked very closely with the CEO of that company, who beyond that company was a prolific investor and really was the one that introduced me to single family and the strategy that we do today. He had a pretty large single family, small multifamily portfolio at that time. So It was God, 10 years ago, actually in November was when I got started, and I've never looked back. You know, I was there for a little over 4 years. And we had a couple different funds that I would, raise capital for. One thing I love about on the fundraising side is if you're doing it right, you need to know a little bit about everything going on, because when you talk to investors, they're going to ask you about everything. So that was a great way to get involved in every aspect of the business, from acquisitions to the debt side of capital and financing, and then the workouts and execution and all that kind of stuff, alongside just the mentorship of working with them and working with him, who helped me to buy my first property, which was actually duplex, for a number of reasons. And then we started GSP it was a little over 5 years ago. And in that role, I do a little bit of everything, from fundraising to, management. We have a great team that we've put together. So kind of managing the property managers, construction managers, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Great. So, so you talked about having multiple funds in the past that you've been involved with, and then you've got this. What is the current name of your current fund?
So we have the income fund and the growth fund. They're the two that we are actively raising capital for now.
And so, what's the difference between one or the other? How would somebody
Yeah,
choose?
the income fund feels like a debt fund. So it's a fixed rate for a fixed period of time. I like to kind of refer to it as like our in-house private credit fund. So we are operators, everything, and we're vertically integrated. So everything that we purchase, we're buying, and then we're doing the construction, the property management, all that kind of stuff. So it's not like we're lending it like how a traditional debt fund will take capital in and then lend it to other investors and that kind of thing. It's in-house, so everything is done. Everything that we acquire is acquired in-house and worked on in-house. So that's our income fund. It feels like interest only, with a balloon payment at the end, that kind of thing. And then the growth fund is more of a traditional, we pay a preferred return and then we split the profit above that. And so the investors can share in the upside and the tax advantages, that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, our strategies are the same. The type of product that we buy is the same. We got the blinders on in a lot of ways. I mean, we're pretty dialed in on workforce, affordable, single family, like you said in the intro, primarily dilapidated homes, so blighted properties that need a whole lot of renovation, so we can buy them at a really cheap price point, go in, fix them up. And then for the most part, we're buy and hold investors. So we certainly do sell properties, and we have, sold properties almost on a quarterly basis throughout the years. But we do primarily, we like the buy and hold strategy.
And what is your typical hold time? Is it forever hold, or
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that myself and my other partners, Ron and Wade, get along with, and that's one of the reasons we do well together as partners. We all look at this as like somewhat of a generational wealth building portfolio, and really with no plans to sell. Not that, we want to look at, the one thing that's nice about single family that is similar to multifamily is with scale comes a lot of opportunities. So there could, if you have enough scale, there could be an institutional exit in a number of different ways. But at the same time, we love the cash flow, we love the appreciation and the tax advantages. So it's not like, some funds will specifically go out to raise to acquire a certain amount and then sell to an institution. For us, it's something that in the back of our mind, and we have conversations around it and with different people. But it for the most part, we want to be holding these assets indefinitely.
And then your investors stay in them for indefinitely also?
They could, in the growth fund, the way that that's structured is they would have the ability to do that if they would like. But understanding that not everybody's into that, we do have options for investors to get out early, and it's kind of a win-win, because the way we look at it is, especially in the growth fund, if somebody wants to get out earlier, it's a smaller check that we have to write, so it's a win for us in that sense. But if they want to stay in longer, instead of writing that check, we can redeploy that into new property. So we can grow the portfolio, which is more rental revenue, more appreciation, more tax advantages. So it's somewhat of a win-win. And then with the income fund, that's more of like it's like that. So investors are in for 9 to 5 years, depending on what option they choose. And people can stay in longer. It's between this company and the last, I've had investors with me for over 10 years now. So a lot of times we're fortunate to be in a market where there's a lot of opportunity, so we can continue to find new assets to deploy capital into. So we've pretty much always been raising since day one, and I foresee doing that for some time with just the sheer amount of product available to us in our markets. And then another great thing about workforce affordable housing is there's a ton of opportunity all over the country. So it's like you said before, it's great in your backyard. If you can make that work, not everybody can, especially out your way in California. It might be harder to find deals that will pencil out. But there's opportunity for, there's a need for workforce affordable housing all over the country, suburban, urban, metropolitan, rural, you name it. There's a massive supply constraint there.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that your income fund, so it's really just a fixed return, and you started to say it's for is that 9 months to 5 years typically?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. 9 months to 5 years. Yep.
5 years, so the maturity date, so you pay people back. And then the growth fund. So how would you do that? How do you, exit out those people? Is it by getting financing on the projects, or?
Yeah, ideally. Yeah. Our strategy is essentially a big BRRRR strategy. So we're buying, rehabbing, putting a renter in, refinancing, and repeat. Now we don't have to always repeat. We can use that capital to pay an investor back, and then we're also selling property as well on a regular basis. So it's kind of a combination of the sale of property and the refinances. Because typically what we do is we have access to lines of credit through our primary lenders, but ideally we like to purchase with cash, renovate with cash, and then put a portfolio loan in place. And one of the great things about single family is you have access to a number of different type of debt. And typically for us, it's going to be long-term, 30-year fixed, 30-year AM type debt.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to ask you about how your financing strategies. I want to kind of explore something. You said you've got a couple of partners. Sounds like you guys have been doing stuff for a long time. What do you think makes that partnership work so well?
Yeah, well, it's everybody staying in their own lane, but also we get along well enough, and we're Ron and I, we're with each other on a daily basis. So we live close to each other. We have an office here that we go to regularly. My other partner, Wade, is in Montana, so the more Zoom meetings and things like that. And he's got a lot of business beyond us in the Philadelphia area. So he's here on a quarterly basis, meeting in person. But a lot of it just has to do with my strength is in business development, whether that be with investors or with new acquisition sources, new sources of subcontractors and things like that. It's just constantly growing the network of our business and our resources and things like that. It's also management, coming from a firm that was a boutique firm that really was going corporate over the years I was there, hiring a ton of consultants, spending all kinds of money, bringing experts in. I was able to, excuse me, I was able to really get a firsthand, look at a company like us now, and what it takes to become more and more corporate and take on more assets and put the right people in the right seats and that kind of thing. So somewhat of a corporate strategy, I would say, is also a good strength of mine. My partner, Ron, has been in construction and property management for the last over 20 years now. So a lot of the guys on our construction crew have been with him for over 15 years. So he really brought that strength to the table, is having the existing crew and then being able to flex that up, having existing subcontractor relationships and things like that. And then my partner, Wade, he has a very unique set of skills within the distressed mortgage space that brings a lot of alternative kind of unique deal flow to our company. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's a lot of products, sometimes it's not. It kind of ebbs and flows, but it's usually through government service entities. And prior to him getting really heavy on the distressed mortgage side, he managed a single family portfolio with over 700 doors. So he knows how to manage at scale and what it takes to get from, one to, a couple, 100 doors, that kind of thing. So, but we all, we all kind of stay in our lanes, have very defined roles titles and things like that. But another thing is we can pretty much all do what everybody else does. I mean, that was one thing that was really important to me, because growing up on the property management side, I understood that side of the business, and a lot of that has to do with just really good resources and that kind of thing. But on the construction side, that was something that just I didn't grow up in that. You know what I mean? So, and I'm the kind of guy where it's a struggle for me to put a light bulb in. It's just I need, I every time I go to one of my properties to do something, and I don't do this as much anymore. I usually just hire somebody, or just send one of our guys. But it's one of those things where I'll take 2 hours. I'll go to Lowe's 2-3 times. I'll spend, $200 and all this time out of my life. And then I'll get a phone call the next day, like, it's still broken. So it's like, you have to know what you're good at. Whereas Ron's not that way at all. I mean, Ron, he started in construction and being very active on site and that kind of thing. So he knows that business through and through. And for me, coming from where I was in distressed mortgages, where we were doing a lot of seconds and then moving into first, which was much more of a hard asset business compared to seconds, which is usually a workout business where it's payment plans and things like that. First, you're typically, well, it depends on the type of product you buy, but a lot of times you could be exiting through the property. So you need to know how to deal with contractors. You need to know how to deal with property managers and things like that. So that was where I kind of thought, okay, I really need, in order to, because real estate's my thing. It's what I'm going to do for life. I really need to understand this construction piece. And I was fortunate to meet Ron through my network. And, I've learned a lot from him over the years. And he can raise capital too. I mean, he's constantly having meetings with investors. Wade's the same way. Wade's is like a walking spreadsheet. So he's really good at analyzing and underwriting and due diligence in that way. So a lot of it has to do with just leveraging each other's strengths and weaknesses, staying in our lanes, but also understanding what everybody does, because at a small company, in case anything happens, you always want to be prepared. And then with systems and processes and workflows and that kind of thing. But like I said, we're fortunate to be at the scale where we have a really great team around us as well. So we have people in charge of property management, people in charge of construction management, and different levels of that, which allows us to kind of manage the managers and the overall vision and things like that, which helps a lot, because you don't want to get bogged down too much in the day-to-day of everything that takes if you're running the company, right?
So why do you favor these single family duplexes over buying larger multifamily properties?
Yeah, that's a great question. We get it all the time. And I would say we favor single family more than anything. We certainly own small multifamily, but it's not something that we really go after. It's one of those things where if the numbers really make sense, we'll do it. But we really favor single family. And the reasoning for it is just our ability to execute in that space. Like I said before, with Ron's crews and guys that have been with him for a long time and his just network of subcontractors and things like that, we can really excel in scattered site single family, which is something that not a whole lot of people can say. A lot of times people get to a certain scale within single family and they want to level up. They have to level up in a certain degree because they're working with other general contractors and things like that. Over the last couple of years, GC pricing has gone up dramatically. So it makes jobs harder to pencil out and that kind of thing. So we see a lot of like I'll get calls from wholesalers and real estate professionals. It's like, oh, this property needs a lot of work. I don't know if you're going to be interested. And it's like, that's exactly what we want. But it's funny because a lot of the people they deal with, they want more of that lipstick type stuff. They want stuff where they can just go in flooring. And we do that on like the mortgage side of our business. A lot of times they're not going to be, because there are 40 different states, and we are working with, outside contractors and things like that. So I understand that side of the business and that makes a lot of sense. But a lot of times people need to be able to have that initial scale on day one so they can hire a third-party property manager. They can hire somebody of quality. Whereas when you're dealing with, if you're just buying one off, two off, a couple properties a year, that kind of thing, chances are that's not going to justify a full-time staff, full-time guys that are working for you and that could do the property management and can do turnover and new renovations and things like that. And then same with like if you need any work done, if you're only calling a plumber once a quarter or once a year or something like that, you're not going to get any they're not running over to your property or something like that. And your pricing is going to be through the roof as well. So, our ability to execute and have that the foundation of the construction really allows us to excel in that space. And then it's just sheer supply and demand at the end of the day. In the Philadelphia market, in the Baltimore market, there's a lot of new multifamily that's come online. And when you look at the data and you ask people, where would you rather live? Would you rather be in a multifamily property or a single family property? I think it's like 8 out of 10 people would typically say single family property. So there's a ton of demand for these types of properties, and there's supply constraints, especially in workforce and affordable housing. It's like a scarce commodity at this point. We're not building new homes valued under 250,000 anywhere in the country. I think it was like over the last year, I think it was less than 3% of new homes were valued under 250,000. So these are becoming a scarce commodity. And the other thing too is right now we're not seeing a ton of institutional competition in that space. So there's still a lot of opportunity to scale and get really good pricing. Now the Philadelphia market has seen more so than Baltimore. So we're not buying as much in Philly as we used to. It's kind of those deals that we get through the network with friends and things like that, where they're no brainers. Whereas in Baltimore, we can find stuff on and off market all day long that fits the bill. And you're starting to see institutions pop up that are focusing more on the workforce and the affordable housing side. They kind of laid the foundation with the Invitation Homes and the Amherst and the American Homes for Rent, and these large institutions that are buying best school districts, really great properties and growing areas in the South and things like that. And we're just now that they've tapped that market, even with like scattered sites. So they're starting to build, they're doing all build to rent, they're buying these huge tracts of land. And institutions, they're raising, usually you have to deploy at least 50 million. It's usually closer to 150 million and above. So those large build to rent communities make more sense for them, where they can almost develop an entire, community. And so it leaves a lot of opportunity for that middle ground of somebody like us, where we're not a mom and pop, we're not an institution, and we're purchasing, fully dilapidated homes. That's another thing I always like to stress is like, we're not competing with regular homeowners. The average regular homeowner is not going to buy a home that needs $80,000 to $100,000 worth of work. Now they will purchase that once it's finished, which is great. And that's why we like to buy in areas where we see a very strong demand for not only rentals, but resale properties. But and not that there isn't other investors that buy that type of property, but it's almost like not even the majority of investors want to buy those types of properties because they don't have the resources on the construction side necessarily. And a lot of times the guys who are that do have the resources on the construction side, a lot of times they're still hammering nails themselves and they're still in the properties doing it themselves, that kind of thing. So they typically don't have a whole lot of scaling opportunities as well, because they tend to be really in the business if they come from the construction side. So we're kind of unique in the sense that we have that construction background, but we have a great team that we can manage to scale to a certain degree.
So it's really because you're doing everything local, you can have that in-house construction team.
Yeah.
You've got that kind of competitive field advantage just because
Yeah.
you have. So, if anybody's
Definitely.
thinking about this as a business model, that's something you might want to think about is, do I have that background, or can I bring somebody into my team that has that background, and can we just go, crazy in our own neighborhoods and start improving, these dilapidated houses that are there. And certainly there's, a lot of markets that probably have quite a few of those.
100%. And like for us, we obviously we live in Philadelphia, and our office is in Philadelphia, but Baltimore is an hour and a half for us. It's not a far ride at all. And if what I would say for somebody that might not be in an area where they can do this in their backyard, because even us, like we can't do it in our we're in the suburbs of Philadelphia. It's very difficult because it's just so much competition. It's the built environment, so there's not a lot of new development going on in the suburbs of Philadelphia, close to the city. And it's just really hard to make numbers pencil out. If you're going to go to another area, you need to be able to scale. I mean, that's probably going to be your most important aspect is doing that. And it's just, and you have to be working with somebody that understands your goals and things like that, and can maybe help with pricing and that kind of thing, because they're going to do such volume, that kind of, so it's very important. Like when you look at institutions that enter a new market, I've heard numbers upwards of 750 to 1,000 plus homes they want to see on day one, because that allows for that in-house construction, in-house property management, all that kind of stuff. So you really are going to need to be able to scale. And fortunately for like, and our construction company operates outside of the funds. I mean, so it doesn't just do work for us in the Philadelphia market, in New Jersey market, in Baltimore, it's primarily working for us. But in the Philadelphia market, New Jersey market, where we don't buy as much, but we still hold a lot of product, we want the guys for the property management side. And that allows us to keep good guys too, because they're constantly working. The managers are constantly working, bringing new people in, managing new jobs and things like that. And it allows for us to kind of see different areas, different markets that we don't necessarily hold rentals in, and or even do fix and flips in or anything like that. So, for us, really the foundation was that construction company and building off of that.
And then also your own in-house property management, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you say in-house, it's not actually the fund manager that
Exactly.
does
Yeah. Yeah. It's a third party controlled by us.
Yeah, it's a separate construction company with some of the same members
Yep.
or owners, and then also a separate property management company, correct?
Exactly. Yep.
And the reason that
what I'm hearing here, I just want to interject for a quick second. What I'm hearing here is, and what I want to highlight for everybody is that this is a business model here that you have, Peter, that is really brilliant, because like, and the thing that we emphasize a lot here for our clients too is like, yes, you're doing a syndicate, and also you're starting a business. This is a business, right? And so what I love hearing from our guests on this podcast, and everything that you've said here, is what I want to highlight. You have established a team where everybody's in their zone of genius. That's so important, right? Everybody's in their lane and in their own zone of genius. However, you also have a succession plan, but where everybody kind of has like an idea of what everybody else does, so that if somebody needs to exit for whatever reason, the business itself doesn't collapse. And that right there is having your customers or your investors and your properties and all of that in mind, right? Like if something happens over here, we're still good. We're still going to be able to function as a business. I think that's really important for people to take away here in terms of your business model. And then of course the topic of niching, a niche, right? And it's like you were saying before, like, oh no, we'll take that property. That's us. We're the ones who take those kinds of properties,
Sure.
And like think about the deal flow with that, right? Because you are now known as that. And then these contractors and this wider business that you're running here, they know what it is that they're getting into with these types of properties. And so you have this like really beautiful, well-oiled machine here, I think. And I just wanted to like give you a high five on that one, because it's business 101, right? And
yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head, Krisha, 100%, and I tell people that all the time. We're running a business, not just creating a portfolio here. And it's so important that it's not just revolving around any one of us. And I think a lot of times that becomes the issue with mom and pop type single family businesses, and I hear stories, and I have investors like this where they had a few units, 5, 10, 15 units or whatever. Maybe it didn't justify property management. And even when you have a property manager, you then need to manage the property manager. So you're going to be on the phone with them. You're going to be telling them what to do, what not to do, all that kind of stuff, what money to spend, that kind of thing. So a lot of times we deal with investors who they have experience in single family, but what the issue was, and if something happened, in their life with the family or kids or a job or something like that, that took them away from being able to actively manage it, then they start to look to sell it and that kind of thing, because they didn't have the right people in place. It all revolved around them. So for us, it's very important that we're looking at this as a business that is going to operate, whether I'm here or Ron or Wade or any of our guys. I mean, that we can replace them and that we can bring in, and we have enough scale that we can hire and be very competitive in the marketplace.
Fantastic. You mentioned one thing. You said you have a mortgage business. Is that, or mortgage side of your business?
Yeah. Yeah, my partner Wade runs that. He's been doing that for a long time, and we buy distressed mortgages from mostly HUD and government service entities, and a lot of times they're HECM loans, so they're reverse mortgages, borrowers deceased, and then we exit through the property. So my background in distressed mortgages was initially in seconds, where you're doing a lot of workout agreements with the borrower, and then it evolved into first, and now it continues to be first. So there's a lot of synergies, and like that's how Invitation Homes and some of those really large institutional players today, that's how they grew their initial portfolio. Is after 2008, they were buying in droves these large packages of distressed mortgages, going through foreclosure, taking the property back, and they took almost whole communities, over back in those days, and it's harder to do that now. So there's definitely synergy between what we do on the rental side and the note business. But because we're vertically integrated, we want to be in the Baltimore market, the Philadelphia market, South Jersey. We want to have our guys on site in order to do that. So a lot of times that product is just fixed up to some degree. We touch about 90% of that product once it comes back to us as real property, add value in some way, and then sell it on the market. If it's in the target market, we will acquire that for one of our funds, but only in the real property position. So like the funds with the credit investors only purchase real property. We have a private equity partner that funds 100% of the note business right now, and we're always looking for new private equity partners. Private equity loves that space because it's a quick, usually capital's back in 2 years or so. You just work through the foreclosure process. Typically we're in states that are more friendly on that side of the spectrum, so we're getting property back and then selling it on, adding some value most of the times, and then selling it on the market. So it's kind of a big fix and flip strategy. It just starts in the paper position. I kind of like to call it a pre-REO. Not that we don't do some reperforming loans as well and workout agreements, but a lot of times the borrower is deceased, so it's not really an option, with the type of product we buy in that space. But it can be, and there's different options out there that we've done in the past. We're exploring now for the future, where we can. A lot of times you get what you get, kind of a thing in those trades. HUD puts out a tape, and you have no control over what's in it. There's some ways that we can maybe change that to some degree. So we're working with HUD now to do that. So that would allow us to find more product exactly in our target markets from a rental standpoint, because if we can get it at the paper position, we're just getting it at an even cheaper price point than we would buying it in the real property position. And even that's arguable, because a lot of the times when we're buying fully distressed properties, we're buying them at a pretty significant discount.
Wow. So yeah, you guys cover a lot of areas, and
Yeah,
just like,
but it's all single family. I mean, that's one thing I always like to stress. It's like whether we're buying it in the real property position or we're buying it in the paper position, it's kind of, you can picture like a funnel. It all funnels down to a real property that we're either going to hold as a rental for long-term income, or a property that we're going to fix up and sell for short-term income. So like pretty much no matter what we do, it all funnels down to a real property that we're holding or we're selling.
right, right. Yeah. Well, and I like that. You really, you really have defined your market, and you're not all over the place, because we do see a lot of people
Sure.
that kind of jump all over and, chase the next thing.
Tiny
But
object, yeah.
there are times when you have to do that, right? We've been in a position in the last couple of years where the people who were buying multifamily properties were having a real hard time finding deals
Yeah.
that made sense. And so when you're in that situation, that is the time to get educated and start looking at a wider spectrum of real estate opportunities that are out there, and trying to figure out, okay, what's the secret sauce for making medical office buildings work, or or triple net properties, or car washes, whatever it is. You're driving down the commercial strip, you can look at all those buildings, somebody owns them.
Yeah.
So you just got to figure out what is the the trick to making them work. And it's not really a trick, it's just, what knowledge do I need to be able to get a tenant in there who's going to pay that rent, or to operate that type of a business. We definitely, and so we're dedicated to that. One of the reasons I asked you on the show is because we are creating a series called Beyond Multifamily, and
Okay. Yeah.
interviewing people who are doing other types of asset classes and doing it in a way that's, you know, highly successful and really working for them, so that our listeners can really understand what is the spectrum of possibilities that's out there. And you know, maybe is there times in the market that I should be pivoting versus, you know,
Sure.
staying my
Definitely. Well, one thing I would add to that, Kim, is, you know, we were really fortunate to pick something that is kind of somewhat insulated, you know, because of the supply and the demand. You know, I mean, I always suggest for investors when they're looking at an opportunity, ask yourself the supply and the demand, and not just the macro. I think a lot of people look at just kind of overall trends in the marketplace because they're reading, you know, news sources that are aggregating things from all over the country and that kind of thing. But look at the micro supply and the demand, you know, in the area, because you look at like office, you know, macro office, not good, right? You know what I mean? All over. It's just office is bad, you know, especially big office place. But where I live, like if I own an office building on Westchester Pike here, and it's a small office, you know, it's not one of these massive, you know, football field type offices, you never have vacancy. You're 100% leased all the time. I mean, so it's just like, you got to look at the micro supply and demand as well. But and then it's, you know, there's so many things that go into it, but we were really fortunate with workforce and affordable housing. There's such a massive supply gap, you know, from with new housing starts versus new housing formation. It's like over 7 million homes are needed in this country. So, and there's just constraints, you know, it's not, we can't just develop them overnight. You know, there's a lot of it has to do with local zoning and things like that. So it's just, it's one of those things. And then the pricing, you know, even with, you know, you need more supply. That's going to help with pricing at the end of the day. But land cost a lot. You know, properties cost more than they did a few years ago and all. So that's why you don't see builders and developers building a lot of workforce and affordable housing. It's just not typically, it's hard for those deals to pencil out when you have to develop that kind of thing. So it's, I think, you know, it comes down to supply and demand, and then the markets too. Like, we're really fortunate to be in markets where we have not seen the massive supply that's come online like the South has, or certain parts of like the Rust Belt and things like that, where over the last couple of years there's been a ton of development from local investors, but just national people coming into areas where they have a lot of growth and migration going that way and all. So where we're at in Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, we're still less than 50% of the inventory we had pre-COVID. So massive supply constraints. Homes are still you know, I've been helping my brother try to find a house for like 2 years now. It's felt like forever. And every home they bid on it waiving inspections, waiving appraisal, contingencies, you know, going over ask and all. So, you know, we're fortunate to be in markets where there's a ton of demand and supply constraints, and there's nothing that really happening on a state, local, federal level that's really going to push for a lot more supply. And even when it does, like if federal money comes available and all, it tends to go to large institutions that build multifamily. And with workforce and affordable housing, you know, the multifamily that's built there, especially subsidized, tends to be studios, one bedrooms. It's hard. It's hard to find a 2, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom product in that space. And a lot of times with the tenants we're dealing with, it's families, you know, they have kids and things like that. So they want their own space. They want, you know, what a single family provides differently than what a multifamily, you know, what a unit in an apartment will provide.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you want to go ahead and talk about how to get a copy of one of our books?
I do. For our wonderful listeners, in case you did not know, we have 2 books on raising capital legally. One is for beginners and one is for more advanced capital raisers. Kim's got them there on display, a la Vanna White. For you to get your copy, you can either go to our website and find the link there, or you can text the word syndicate to our phone number. That's SYNDICATE, syndicate, to 844-796-3428. So that's texting the word syndicate to 844-796-3428. And don't forget, anybody who's on here live, you can go ahead and ask questions. There's a chat and there's a Q&A box there. Feel free to engage with us. And if there's any questions, we'll answer them at the end.
Yeah, and you can ask questions of any of us, Peter, Krisha, me, we're all happy to answer your questions. While people are getting ready to ask questions, what advice would you give to someone who wants to start out this way and kind of follow your path?
Wow. Well, first, before I answer that, I will say I own the book was that the thicker one, and I use that as a resource at least on a weekly basis. There's a great glossary in there with terms and all. Like yes, that one. So nobody told me to say this. I really I do. I own it, and I swear to God, it's at least once a week that I find myself in there because so many people you see terms on social media, LinkedIn, like all the time. And even 10 years into this, there's terms I'm like, what does that even mean? And I've been able to find them all in the books. It's really useful. And two, you just need a reminder and things like that. So I can't suggest if you're raising capital, if you're even whether you're an operator who's raising capital or an investor looking to invest capital, it's a great resource. But to answer your question, I think asking really good questions is important, so and you only can do that by having conversations. I mean, so just talking to people. If you're going to be passive and invest with operators, you want to diversify just as you would your regular real estate portfolio or stocks and bonds, mutual funds, that kind of thing. So diversification is key. Asset class diversification, geographical diversification, short term, long term, all that kind of stuff. You need some diversification to a certain degree. I think you can overdo it as well. And Warren Buffett has his thoughts on diversification, and I agree with it. So I really think you want to balance. But I think what it comes down to is just asking really good questions, and that starts with just having really great conversations. And don't be afraid to pick up the phone and talk to people and listen to podcasts and things like that. But you can't beat a conversation with somebody who's active and just listening to them because their chances are, if they're good at what they're doing, they should know what's happening in their backyard and in the markets they're investing in, all that kind of stuff. And then, coming on things like this where you can hear other people's questions. We do quarterly review calls where we bring everybody on, and we do webinars and things like that where we have open Q&A. I always think like that's great because for the investors too, because they get to hear what other people are asking. Because sometimes you just don't even know what to ask until you hear somebody else ask it and you think, oh, that's a really good question. And then you can take that and you can ask when you're looking at another opportunity or something like that, you can ask that. So I think asking really good questions is a skill set that we all need as investors, whether we're passive or active.
Yeah, I think that's great. But I also think that one of the things you talked about is assembling your team
Yeah.
with diversified skill sets. So, you've
Yeah.
got somebody who's got the deal sourcing, you've got somebody who oversees the construction aspects and property management, and then you've got you who's kind of like the jack of all trades, who's, covering all the other bases, talking to investors, overseeing projects, all the other different things that you do. And I can tell you wear a lot of different hats.
Yeah, and I love it. I still 10 years in, I'm still as passionate as I was on day one. I love this business and I love every aspect of it. Not everybody you meet is like that. I think some people kind of use real estate as a means to an end. And that's unfortunate, because there's a lot of, and maybe you're not doing the right thing within the space, but and it's not for everybody, right? For a lot of different reasons. My dad is a property manager. He hated single family. When he started his journey in real estate, he worked for Pico, which is like the power and energy company here locally in the Philadelphia area and all. And he hated it. They owned properties where they had power lines and things like that, and he hated it. So it's not for everybody. And my brother, he's corporate America. He's riding the ladder, up to the top, that kind of thing. And God bless him, he loves it. That's what he wants to do. And so it's not for everybody. I think another important thing that kind of plays off of what you were just saying, Kim, is you really have to know yourself. And if you know yourself and what your strengths and weaknesses are, from there you can surround yourself and you can leverage other people with their strengths and weaknesses, that kind of thing. But yeah, real estate's definitely a team sport. And one thing I always say is there's capital, acquisitions, and execution. And it's hard to wear all those hats at once.
Yeah. Well, so tell us about you. So you have two open funds right now. You have your income fund and you have your growth fund. Are these 506Bs, 506C?
Yeah. They're 506Cs, so we can advertise and generally solicit and put stuff on our website and talk about it, that kind of thing.
Yes, that just means that he does have the ability to advertise those, but they are restricted to verified accredited investors only. If there are any listeners that would like to know more about Peter's funds, Peter, how can they reach you?
Yeah, I would start with gsprei.com. That is our website. You can find the information on our funds there. We have webinar recordings and articles and other podcasts and things like that on there. And on the contact page, you can schedule time with me and my partners. And so, like I said, I always suggest people, start with the phone call because it's important to understand for us to understand what your goals are and make sure that you understand what we do and how it works and the risk involved and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I love that you said that because so many people come to us believing that, well, just because I can advertise now, I don't have to even have a conversation with these people. Just
I deal with people all across the board, where it's like they literally just email you and be like, oh, I'd like to invest X amount, send me the paperwork, that kind of thing. And, if that's what somebody wants to do, who am I to tell them no, you know what I mean? But I hate doing business that way. I much prefer having conversations and multiple conversations because accredited investors tend to be very busy, and they're very successful and they got a lot going on. And I always joke, I have some investors that have been with me since literally day one. I've known them for years and years and years. They go on all our podcasts, they champion me. And I get these phone calls where they'll be like, do you buy single family homes? And it's like, how do you not know this? And it's like, I know you know this. You know what I mean? Do you have Section 8 rentals? It's like, I know you know this because I've seen you on that every webinar we've done. I've seen your name on the thing and all. You've asked questions and all. You just forgot. You know what I mean? Like, you please tell me you just forgot. Or you had one too many glasses of wine or something like that. I do get that. I'm not the kind of guy. I don't like surprises. You know what I mean? Like I don't like surprises. I'm a plan guy, orient guy. You know what I mean? Like I like to know what's coming to a certain degree. And obviously with real estate, you can only plan so far. You know what I mean? And things like that. You can only model so much. A model isn't going to factor in everything at the end of the day. There's always going to be limitations. But with investors, like I like to know that I've said my piece, and that I've said everything I can. Yeah, exactly. That there's not going to be any surprise, that what we do, why we do it. And I think it's good advice for an investor too. Like if you're dealing with somebody who's not asking you questions, that should make you maybe a little bit concerned as well, because they need to, and maybe the person you're dealing with on like the investor relations team just isn't there yet, you know what I mean, where they know to do that or something like that. They haven't been trained well, but it's so important that they understand your goals, because this is a relationship. Once you're invested with somebody, it's a relationship. It's gonna last for, ideally, for a very long time. So you want to make sure that what you're providing meets their goals, that kind of thing. And the best investors are repeat investors. I mean, people that have come in and they love what you do, and they enjoy what you're doing and how it works and all, and they invest more capital. It's much less time and money, spent on, than going out and finding new investors, that kind of thing. So you want to treat the people that you already know and that have already invested very well, and that helps a lot.
Well, best practice is to get to know your investors before you let them in. Doesn't matter if they're accredited or non-accredited. The wrong investor, just like, the wrong spouse can, create some upheaval in your life. So you want to be careful. You're going to be in a relationship with these people for a long time. You want people that are going to be reasonable people if something arises, and they're going to be business people that are more interested in helping solve the problem than escalate some kind of litigation or something like that. So you can get a sense of that by having those multiple conversations with them, and making sure that your personalities are compatible, and you feel comfortable calling out to them and saying, hey, look, we are having some problems here. Here's what's going on. I just want you to be informed, and they're not going to freak out on you. So highly recommend to all of you that are raising capital that you embrace these strategies, get to know your investors before you let them into your life. So I think that's amazing. Krisha, can you think, we have a lot of shy people in the audience today. We've got a the audience, but I guess we've answered all their questions. But
I'm surprised because usually we have tons of questions.
Um,
Well, I put the link for the Peter's website in the webinar chat for anybody who's there, and also a link to Kim's Amazon page for anybody impatient who wants the book right now. um, I think what I'm getting out of this, oh, well, one of the last things that you said that I picked up on too is loving what you do, and that how important that is, and another thing that I love about the guests that we interview on here is that everybody is like an entrepreneur. This entrepreneur mindset, which has this like grit and stick it to itness, and just like not giving up no matter what. There's like this like insane resilience that entrepreneurs have, in order to make it work. I'm curious, like how you balance, if I could get a little personal here, how you balance like, yourself in all of this. Like, it sounds like you've got like a really great business model, which is awesome. And there's a human on the other side of this. And so I'm curious how you balance all of that, in your life.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great question. And it's funny because it's been coming up a lot recently. Because my introduction to real estate was beyond, like property management, my dad, that kind of thing. But the investment side of real estate was being handed Rich Dad, Poor Dad with one hand, and then Earl Nightingale's The Secret with the other. So the mindset is such an important part that cannot be missed. And there's been times over the last 10 years, you have ups and downs, personally and professionally. And there's days where everything's easy and everything's working out great. And there's other days where it doesn't, and it just seems like everyone and everything is against you, in a lot of ways as well. So you just have to chug along, and I think that, you do have to have those things in your life. I'm a new uncle. I have a niece, Catherine. She's God, about 22 months old. She's going to be a little bit less than that. I think she's going to be 2 in February. So that's a blast, and I do a lot of cooking, if you can't tell by looking at me. So I love to cook. It's one of those things at the end of the day, that kind of takes you away from the stresses and things like that, clears your head, that kind of thing. So, and for my brother, he hates to cook. So and his wife doesn't love cooking either. So I'll cook for them. I'll cook for the baby. I'll bring stuff over. I have a great relationship with my family and friends and things like that, and my parents. And I have a beagle too. So GSP stands for German Short Hair Pointer. My partner Ron has 2 right now. My partner Wade has 1, and he's had him his entire life. And I said, I'm going to get one back in the day because I was looking for a dog during COVID. And they were like, you cannot do this business with a GSP. They're too crazy. They have too much energy. And that's one of the reasons we picked that name was, because we felt like it embodied our brand. They're hunting dogs. They're very serious. They're very loyal. They're very focused, very driven, tons of energy. And that's how the 3 of us are. And the people that we hire and that kind of thing, kind of it drives our brand, and that kind of just overall mentality around the business. I ended up with a beagle. So she's a hunting dog, but she also, like right now, she's probably passed out on the sofa somewhere. Like she'll sleep till, she can get up at 8 and run around and go to a park or something like that. Or she'll sleep to noon. She's like the perfect combination of like crazy driven, just she'll pull you all around town. Or she'll just chill out on a sofa for hours on end, and she loves to eat as well. My God. So they're kind of the things outside that keep me, somewhat balanced and that kind of thing. And I do love real estate. Yeah, we're very dialed in on single family, but I've spent time in the past. I had kind of an apprenticeship at a commercial firm a few years back, where that was a boutique firm where they were touching everything from retail to office, industrial. So I'm in NIOP and ULI and different, industry communities and things like that. So I constantly go to events and always looking at what what else is out there and just educating myself, because, and that comes back to like what we said before with like being a on the investor relations side of the business. If you're raising capital for what you do, it's really important to know everything that's going on in the business if you really want to be good at it. And it's really important too to know what's going on in the industry as well, like the greater industry, so that you can talk to it. And a lot of times your investors are going to be diversified. They're going to have money in multifamily and self storage and car washes and industrial and you name it. So
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to just point out a couple of things. What's clearly evident is your passion. Okay. And most people are investors are very much attracted to people with passion for what they do. And so that's, I'm sure, one of the things that's helped you be very successful in talking to investors is that when they see that it's infectious, they want to be part of it. And they know that you're dedicated to it because it is your passion and you're not running off and doing, 20 other things. You're really focused.
sure.
Yeah, that definitely builds trust.
That yesterday, every week, I don't know if some of the listeners know, but we do have weekly clients only masterminds that last about 90 minutes. And we have, a variety of clients that show up on these calls, but it's all part of our capital raising, starter and accelerator programs that we offer. And the whole point is to help people, get from where they are now to where they want to go. The discussion that we had yesterday was about branding and, how do you pick a brand? And one of the things we specifically said was you have to be able to explain it and it should mean something to you. And the fact that, it related to the dogs that, that clearly the other team members are passionate about. But also you look more to that at the dog spirit and,
Sure.
what they're like, and does that meet our mission, and does that express our values? And it does. So you've got a great story. So any brand that has a great story behind it is a great brand, and because we'll ask, what does that mean? Do you get
Sure.
that a lot? What does this
All
mean?
the time. Yeah. All the time. It comes up. And exactly like you said, it's a great opportunity to talk to our values, and our beliefs and our mindset around the business, that kind of thing. So I love it, and a lot of people are dog people at the end of the day. So it makes you feel good too, right? It's like a feeling behind it as well. Honestly, I probably don't play off of it enough. If you go on our website, you'll see like GSPs all over the place. And it's in our logo, that kind of thing. But there is, so much more to it than just loving the dogs. And it, like you said, it kind of drives some of the decisions you make when hiring people and your overall culture and things like that. Because, dogs, there's so many different types of dogs and they all come with their own personalities, and that's a dog that really has quite the personality and that really embodies the way we approach the business from an acquisition standpoint to a capital raising standpoint and just property management, all that kind of stuff, with just being loyal, having a lot of energy, passionate, focused, all that kind of stuff. So it was funny. And honest, we didn't even when we first picked it, it was one of those things that just kind of happened. We were looking at, we didn't want to be dialed in. I mean, coming from PPR, where it was like, that was Partners for Payment Relief. It was all around notes, and their business at that time was evolving so much. And now they do all kinds of stuff beyond notes. It became where the brand was actually somewhat restricting. It was almost, they're having conversations. So we changed the name of the company and all to now embody our new kind of evolved brand, that kind of thing. So it was something that was fresh in my mind at that time. So because we talked about, like, should we name it, because we have such a foundation in construction, do we name it the Construction Management Fund or something like that? Or, do we name it, something around single family? Because that's always been our focus. And we knew that was going to be our focus for some time to come. But we went with GSP because it was something we all loved. And I guess too, there was that, just the overall personalities that we felt were related to us. And that gave us flexibility, because to everything we talked about before, we're fortunate to be investing in an asset class that's going to be around for a very, very long time. And there's such a supply constraints. There's such high demand during recession or downturns and things like that. The demand for workforce affordable housing tends to get even higher. So we're fortunate to be in markets where there's supply constraints as well, and constraints around how much can be developed and land available, that kind of thing. But it's one of those things, like as you grow and as you get larger and you're able to make key hires and things like that, we always want to be open to other opportunities, and investors, don't always want to hear that. You know what I mean? They want to, a lot of times investors want to invest with somebody who's very dialed in, very focused. But when you look at some of the best real estate investment companies out there, as they get larger, you want to lay that foundation. I think that's a good advice for somebody just getting started on the operation side of the business. Pick something, do it very, very well, build a really great team around it, and then you can maybe look for diversification opportunities and things like that. Because we are investors.
One thing, get good at one thing,
Yeah,
do something else,
yeah,
right? Yeah, that is the key there, is get good at this and get known for this, and then
yeah,
if you can branch out, then you can expand. But if you keep
exactly.
trying to go too
Good
many,
Amazon.
we create funds
Yeah.
for people sometimes, and whenever they want to do what I call a kitchen sink fund, where they can do whatever they want with it, they're largely unsuccessful. The ones
Yeah,
that are really targeted, and this is our model, and we're going to keep doing it over and over, those are the ones that succeed.
yeah,
So I just did want to mention that if you have any questions about our mastermind programs, or how you can get involved with either of our pre-syndication capital raiser programs, please do reach out to Krisha. You can reach out to her at Krisha@syndicationattorneys.com. And also, we did have one question about portfolio loans. I know that you said that you do use portfolio loans, so that's really just kind of packaging some properties together and then getting a blanket loan on all of them.
yep.
Don't really have time to go into the terms on those. I guess if that person has a question for you, they could email you direct. Is there an email for you, Peter, that they could use for that?
Yeah, it's my name, P-N-E-I-L-L. So P Neill, 2 L's, at gsprei.com. And if you go to the website, I think on the contact us page, my email's there. And if you schedule something, it goes to me as well. So
All right. Well, Peter, this has been great. Thank you so much for so freely imparting your knowledge and your passion and your branding expertise. All of that is so valuable for our listeners to hear, and we would love to talk to any of you. Please reach out to Krisha if you have any questions for her. Please reach out to Peter if you have any questions for him, and we'll look forward to seeing you. We are starting to do our podcasts a little more frequently because we have a lot of guests that we want to get to that are backed up. So you're going to be seeing us maybe even at times doing 1 or 2 a week. If you'd like to follow those, please show up. If you can't make it, then please watch them later on YouTube, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Kim.
thanks, Kim. Thanks, Krisha.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.